On February 27th, the 10th generation of Pokémon and the starter trio for it was officially announced. If you do not want spoilers, I recommend you watching the trailer first. If you did watch the trailer, which starter is your favorite so far? As soon as I saw the first trailer, my head went into what are the final starter evolutions gonna look like mode, and that's exactly what we're gonna do today. And before we start, if you like Pokemon, you can check out my own Fakemon region right here. There are like a ton of videos, and my next video is probably gonna be a redesign of my own starter trio. So when watching the trailer, I couldn't really pinpoint what country the region would be based on. It's probably based on an island or a peninsula, something with a lot of water and ocean and sea stuff. The trainers kinda gave me Australia vibes, and the coral reef could be inspired by the Great Barrier Reef, but there are also more than enough countries with coral reefs. Also gave me like Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam and Malaysia vibes. I'm absolutely not a pro when it comes to geography, but I think the region is inspired by like somewhere here. Yeah. The starters didn't scream any particular country to me, but they rarely do, so they weren't really a help. I looked up mythical creatures from each of the mentioned countries, and then I settled for Indonesia as an inspiration for my fan-made final evolutions. Let's start with the grass starter Browt. It's another grass bird, so I assume the final evolution will have a completely different body shape and color scheme to differentiate it from the Rowlet line. Also, I low-key predicted the grass starter. It is described as a bean chick Pokemon that runs around energetically to photosynthesize with its leaf eyebrows. Which will become important later, but let's just start with the drawing. The runaround energetically to photosynthesize part makes me believe it's gonna end up as a grass electric type, which would be so freaking cool. Like, is it an unused type? I'm not sure. Like, it sounds like an unused type, but I could be wrong. I also think it's not gonna end up as a Pokemon that's like flying based or air based. I think it will stay on the ground. That's why the running around was mentioned. When starting to draw, I actually used an Australian inspiration, the extinct Thunderbird, but after settling for Indonesia as an inspiration, I changed it to the Garuda, which is not Indonesia exclusive, but this deity is on their national coat of arms and also the name of an Indonesian airline. I used this image as the main inspiration, mainly because I really like the feathers. Unfortunately, I couldn't capture the essence that well. It would have been like way too detailed in the end. I turned the leaf eyebrows of Browt into a feather-like mask and tried to give the wings at least 3 rows of feathers. In my initial coloring, 1 row was blue, but it didn't really help with the typing, and like so I changed it to a green. Yeah. Its lower body is my favorite part of the design. I turned the dark gray body parts of Browt into thunderclouds. You can see it in the official artwork, but Browt actually has a very bushy tail, so it was perfect for what I was going for. I colored parts of the outlines yellow to give it a more like electric type feeling, like as if it's charging electric energy. And yeah, there we have it. I couldn't come up with a name, so if you have any suggestions, please let me know in the comments. And of course, what do you think of our little grass electric type Thunderbird friend? Which type do you think it's gonna be in the end? I don't know, maybe fighting, flying. There are a lot of different possibilities. Next up, the fire starter Pombon, which is very obviously inspired by Pomeranians. It looks a little bit like a fusion of Samacenta and Pyro, but like as a dog. Okay, wait, Samacenta is a dog, but you know what I'm talking about. Speaking of Pyro, it has the kanji for fire on its paw, and I think it's a lot more cleverly and visually appealing integrated than with Pyro. Yeah, let's draw something. So, like with Browt, I googled Indonesia dog mythos and I found the barong, which is more like a panther or lion creature, but Pombon has a giant mane, and so does the barong. So for me, that's close enough. Pombon has a very flat face or head that is completely merged with its mane. I do think it's gonna get a more pronounced head in its final evolution, but I had a little bit of trouble finding out in which direction I should go, especially since I really like the head of the barong with the tusks and everything, but whenever I tried to draw it, the face looked more like a donkey, mainly because of the nose. So I had to make it a little less intricate to make it look more like a dog. The tusks also weren't really working for a design with a closed mouth, so I changed the mouth form up a bit. I always take forever when I have to draw open mouths, and I did not have the time to do it for this one. Probably the majority of Pokemon fans want Pombon to stay on all four, and I am one of them. However, I do think a two-leg design could work. Maybe like a werewolf-like silhouette, or like maybe they would go into the Flaremon direction. I wouldn't be mad at that. I think that could look really cool. While coloring, I realized I basically remade my own fire starter if it was a dog. And it's even closer to my unreleased redesign, so yeah, whatever. I haven't talked about the types yet. I feel like it could become a fire and fairy type, or honestly most other typings as well. I couldn't find any indicator what the secondary typing could be, besides it looks cute and silly, so maybe it's a fairy type, but that's like very vague. Here it is, another unnamed evolution. Name suggestions are welcome. I gave it the fire and fairy type, but I'm the least confident with my prediction here. Let's get to the final starter, the water starter Gecqua. I'm pretty sure it is based on the fat-tailed gecko. The Pokédex says it's intelligent, so I'm assuming it's gonna be a psychic type. It also mentions that it launches water balls from its tail, which also to me sounds a little bit like psychic type. It kind of feels like a fusion of Sobble and Snivy, like Sobble's body type and Snivy's personality, but a little bit more diva. This one was the last I drew because I knew it's gonna be the most anthropomorphic one, and those are by far the hardest ones to draw for me. As you can probably tell, I used Salazzle as inspiration and reference because I feel like that's the direction the final concept will go. I would be very surprised if that's not the direction they're gonna go. I turned the water symbol on its head into an eye-like pattern because psychic, you know. And I added a brush-like tip to its tail full of psychic energy, which it not only uses to brush its lashes but also to hit opponents with, obviously. I imagine it a little bit like Amaterasu, where if you get hit by the energy you can't get it off anymore. I feel like the direction I went is the most basic direction you can go. I don't hate the outcome, but it's a little, you know, it could go more high concept, because out of the three it's the least inspired one, and I'm not sure how to feel about it, because I think as of right now Gecqua is my favorite one out of the 3 stars, but after my evolutions I would not pick it. Yeah. I also think the name Gecqua is a little basic. Yeah, whatever. Here's the final evolution. Again, no name. Feel free to name this diva. I would love to see a water and psychic type starter in the future, and I'm fairly convinced it's gonna be Gecqua. I thought about what overarching theme this trio could represent, and I literally could only see one theme, and it's super stupid. It's facial hair. Like, Browt has a giant brow, Pombon has a beard, and Gecqua has eyelashes, but that's probably more of a coincidence than an intended theme. What do you think the overarching theme could be? Like, did I miss anything, or are you seeing like stuff that I didn't see? Also, here are the second stages I came up with. I drew them before I drew the final evolutions, and then I was like, okay, I'm just gonna draw the final evolutions, so they are like highly unfinished. I think my favorite secondary evolution is the one of Browt, and I also like Browt's final evolution the best. Little dinosaurish birdie friend. Yeah. After seeing all of the final evolutions, which one would you pick? I will also make a community post where you can officially vote if everything goes right. I hope you had fun. Let me know everything you wanna say in the comments, but please without mentioning the leaks. I wanna keep this a spoiler-free zone. I hope you had fun. Please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and see you in the comments.